Welcome to the 313 Men, Money, and Marriage podcast, the podcast where facts, logic, and reasoning are at the forefront of every conversation. I am your host, Andrew Johnson, and I'm going to be co-hosting this show with my friend over here who's been on the show several times, Miss Ellen Sudderth. Ellen, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
We're going to give you some little applause here. All right. And up here in the screen here, we got two other guests that are coming on and going to be talking about this particular topic. We're going to be talking about Divorce in the Black, the movie that came out recently, the Tyler Perry movie, and we're going to be discussing it. And I'm glad I have three women on because this is a movie that they understand maybe a little bit better than, say, I do. So over here, we have Wendy. Wendy, can you tell us about yourself? And how do you pronounce your last name?
Arsad, like, are you sad?
Are you sad? Okay.
Yes, I'm a computer operator one. I'm Amazon influencer. I do a lot of things, Avon representative, and so much more.
Okay. But even still, we're going to get started here on the topic and we're going to discuss it. And what we're going to talk about, like I said, we're going to be talking about the movie Divorce in the Black. And one of the first things I did want to talk about on this particular, this movie, which was, if you haven't seen it yet, we're going to be discussing. So if you still want to see it, you may not want to listen to the conversation totally because we're going to be maybe telling you some of the information and you might not want that. So, but even still, we're going to talk about that. And the first thing I want to talk about is that very first scene. So Wendy, can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit? What was your thoughts on it? I have my own opinion and I will speak on it here in a little bit, but can you tell me what you thought about that first scene?
That first scene was a doozy. For one thing, the preacher, he wasn't preaching. He didn't preach the sermon about how good or the accolades of what he did or what he didn't do. And basically that part was very interesting. And then the more he got into his sermon, the more and more he got riled up. The rest of the family and everybody was just looking at him. And then the famous coffin scene.
That's what I was getting at. What did you think about that coffin scene?
I thought it was a bit far-fetched. I never heard of anyone doing that, but Tyler Perry movies, he always going to have a conversation starter, something to get everybody talking about it. That's how I felt about it.
So it was shock value. April, you went out when we were introducing you. Can you just give us a quick 30 seconds and tell us who you are now that you're back?
Yeah. My name is April Thomas. I'm the CEO of Jiley Media. April Thomas is my pen name. I guess my government name is April Jim. And I am the author of Toxic, The Double Cross, and Endurance, The Power Within.
Got it. Great. So, April, I'm going to ask you, what did you think of that first scene in the movie?
He nailed it. If he wanted to shock people and get them talking about something, he did it, because I did not see that coming. That shocked me.
I definitely didn't see it coming, and when I saw it, I was like, I think he might have went a little too far. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I just thought that was a little disrespectful, I guess. Being kind.
Yeah.
Ellen, what's your thoughts on it?
My thoughts were it was traumatic and shocking, but at the same time, it was a thought process of what would a pastor say if he really wanted to say what he wanted to say. And so that's what I seen. And then also the coffin scene was very traumatic.
Got it.
When she said, get him.
Yes.
I mean, she had that rage in her.
Yes. And that was part of the I guess the issue of it. I was talking to Ellen about this earlier, and as we were discussing it, we were just saying how each of the brothers had different roles within the family dynamic. And so, they followed her lead, even though some of the things that she was saying and doing was inappropriate. You know, and so they would just still stick with her and follow her lead on some of that stuff. The other part, and Wendy, you mentioned that about what the pastor was saying versus, pertaining to the funeral part. It's supposed to be somewhat, I wouldn't use the word uplifting, but you're supposed to speak about the dead in a glowing way, even if they weren't a good person, because they might have been a good person to someone. So you kind of got to talk about that type of stuff. So I guess the pastor, that's where I guess he dropped the ball.
But you didn't see any good in them,
No, I get that. I get that.
But basically telling him, well, you're not going to heaven. Basically, that's what he's telling
right.
him.
But
you're
see,
going to
that's
heaven.
in that situation, though, the pastor, he shouldn't have been the one to do it.
Yeah, I think think he got it in his feelings also.
Yes.
Due to the fact that that's his daughter, and that he probably thought she could do better. So it's a lot of stuff that's haven't come to surface.
All right, this is going to be one of the questions I want to ask. It's a little tricky, so I'm going to start this one off with Ellen, and then we'll go to April, and then Wendy. How do you think the film's portrayal of divorce aligns or diverges from the reality of divorce in the African American community? So is this a good portrayal, or what's your thoughts on that, Ellen?
I think it was pretty good. I think what it showed, and maybe some of us were shocked because the way it is now, the superpower couple relationship goals type thing, I think it showed the realness of how we as people of color avoid, silence, dismiss trauma.
Got it. And April, what about you? Do you think that this is this film? What do you think? Do you think it portrayed or did it align with the reality of divorce within the African American community?
I do think I get Ava's point. She when she finally decided to make a decision that she wanted to be out, like she accepted it. I think she didn't care. She would chew her own arm off, and I think that is very realistic. Like she didn't even look at the divorce paper; she just signed it, and I felt like that was very real. Like she said, what am I going to fight over? So, yeah, I liked it. I felt like it was pretty real.
Okay. Wendy, April, you were coming in a little broken up, but we were able to hear some of it. Wendy, what about you?
I think it aligns with, the people getting divorced, but I think he should have brought more of. I think he should have brought more of it leading up to the divorce. I mean, there was like a quick divorce overnight, which we know doesn't happen. And every divorce scenario is different. But as far as alignment of people getting a divorce, even though, we have the highest rate of divorce, period. Black, and then the Spanish people, and then the white have maybe 15% of whatever we have. But it did align, but it was a different scenario.
Got it. Good point. Good point. The economic factor, because it was, the movie was entitled Divorce in the Black. And Ava, the character that she portrayed there, Megan Good, she mentioned that in the movie. She says, I want to be in the black. And that's more of an economic term, when we're talking about the divorce. And what I thought was funny was when she was signing the papers, I think her friend, and I wrote her friend, Rona, her name was her friend or something. She said, don't you want to, negotiate some of the assets of this, that, and the other? And she said, he doesn't have anything. So and I thought that was so funny because, she's basically saying after the divorce, I'm going to be made whole. I'm going to be okay. So, and the question I have as far as economic factors and decisions on the divorce, did the film portray that? I guess, well, he was a working man. He did have a job. Now, I don't know, obviously, and, here's the twist to this. She, just looking at it, was apparently the breadwinner in the home.
Yeah,
this dynamic is happening more in our country. It is not a situation where more women who are getting married are earning more than their husbands, men are still percentage wise higher, but the gap is closing. And so in this particular situation, the economic factors on a decision of a divorce, I guess the question I would ask is, how does that play a role into whether or not we get a divorce? You know, if the numbers ain't numbering, what do we do? You know, should we stick it out and, you know, rough it out, or do we just call it quits? Ellen, you want to answer that?
In this situation with Ava and Dallas, like you said, they both had money, and it did appear that she was the breadwinner, and that he did have some income coming in, be it if she put him on to the job. But it seems like it more spiraled down when he started having more domestic things going on, signing divorce. He lost his job. And so I think that was the tumultuous feeling of being, losing that income.
Got it. And April, what about you? Do you think that economic factors play a role in the decision on getting divorced? I guess the question I would ask is, should you stick it out? You know, when times get tough, you know, and just, you know, maybe things take a turnaround, or do you bail at the first sign of some economic difficulties? Coming from the woman's point of view, how long do you stick it out if you're going to do it?
You know, to me, it all depends on the situation. If it's abusive, which in her situation it was abusive, I say get out. There's no reason to stay in that. If it's not abusive and you guys are just you grew apart or whatever, then I'd even go as far as to say is infidelity. If he cheated or somebody cheated, and maybe try to work it out if finances ain't right. But an abuse, no, leave. Go.
I got it. Wendy, what about you? What would you do in that situation?
I agree with them too. I'm both the old school and the millennial. I'm both. But I would, she was the breadwinner. We already knew that. But after trying to work it out, and they've been married a long time, right? I would have been gone.
She should have left a long time.
And is that based on the abuse part of it, or is that based on the finance?
On the abuse. It wasn't a finance. They didn't have a financial problem.
Right.
In the movie, they didn't have a financial problem, but any other person, if it was a financial problem, they probably try to work it out. And if it doesn't, like you say, if the math is not mathing, and we're going to just argue all the time, what's the sense of being together?
Sure.
That makes sense. Yeah. So that's a I guess if you, based upon the movie, if there was a financial issue combined with the abuse, then you don't really have much of a choice but to leave,
right.
You know, in that situation. So that's kind of, you know, that throws another layer into it. One of the questions I did have, and I talked with this about to Ellen, you know, I talked about it before, is how does a woman, you know, and since y'all all three women, y'all have to, you know, y'all can answer this. How do you end up marrying someone like Dallas? Because this happens all the time. And just looking, you know, from a man's point of view, men are always going to be like, why? You know, why would you, you know, the risk of having to go through some things that you probably wouldn't have went through by picking a guy like this. What it is why do y'all pick, the guys want to know, why do y'all pick guys like this? And when do you want to start?
Okay, based on the movie, I'm gonna do that part first.
Yes,
based
yes.
On the
Well,
movie,
we based it on the movie, absolutely.
They were in high school. She was in love with him, so they got married at an early age. So she didn't know all of his characteristics based only what she saw in the present. So as time progressed, you know, she started learning more about his past trauma, right? And it just kept progressing worse and worse and worse. So you have your friend that's always telling you, girl, you don't need to be with him. You can do better by yourself. And that kept being in her ear. So you can get married as, we get married, we change as the years go by. And with Ava's case, it just got worse. So she didn't know what she was getting into until further into the marriage. I don't think she would have picked them per se. And then me and Ellen had talked about it. She was trying to change him into something, mold him into something that she wanted him to be. There was red flags somewhere. She just missed it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the point I want to get to, because the red flag aspect of it was his family had a reputation.
Yep.
And so to me, that was the red flag.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the biggest one.
And they didn't accept her.
Yes. On top of that. Yeah. So that's a good point. And so I guess the thing is, when that happens, and in that situation, she gets some empathy, because you did say they were married, it looks like right out of high school or somewhere around in that area, still very young, still naive as to what would be going on. And April, can you answer that question for us, April? Why do women pick these types of guys, someone like a Dallas?
Okay, so now this is the part that I really did I saw myself in Ava. Her best friend mentioned how she brought home that stray cat that kept attacking her, and she kept loving on it regardless. So I can relate to Ava. I'm probably Ava in a lot of ways, where I've probably given the wrong person a chance way too long. So I could see myself ending up in her situation and really trying to make it work, because I do believe in marriage and I do believe in hanging in there. So I completely can see myself in Ava's shoes 100%, unfortunately. It happens.
Got it. And Ellen, what about you?
As we talked about a little bit earlier, it's the fixing. We always want to fix and build a man, build a husband. So in her case, why she would do it? Because she wanted to fix him. And as Wendy was saying, that she was familiar, she wanted that edgy guy. And I think the number one factor was her faith and her parents. Go through with it, stick and stay, and make it work. And that's what she did.
Yeah, and I think that did play a role in it. Is her parents, she told her, when she was talking to her parents, when they were telling her, maybe it's time to go, when she was talking to them, she was saying, we stick it out. We try to make it work. That's what y'all raised me. Mm-hmm. And because she grew up in a religious household. And so I could definitely see that, playing out when you grow up in a situation like that. It's just, it's tough for, I was talking to Ellen about this earlier. It's like women they think that they can fix something that's broken sometimes. Mm-hmm. And they don't have the coping skills or the tools or the mental fortitude sometimes to fix a broken man. Sometimes I say this because I've counseled men and women in institutional settings. And sometimes it's hard to say this sometimes to women, but I say a man who's really broken, usually only another man can fix him. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A woman can help. Mm-hmm. And woman can help and can be very valuable, especially keeping them on course. But initially, that first building piece.
That trail, yeah.
Yes, initially. But once he's starting to do a little bit better, and he's starting to work towards, some goals he might have established or anything like that, then yeah, women can come in and absolutely help. It definitely makes a difference, once he's out of the chaos. Yeah. Because the man has to get him, another man's gonna have to get him out of the mess. And then once he gets out of that, then he can be spoken to and talked to, and then, you have a chance to sort of heal him a little bit, to sort of just get him to heal. And so I always think that's very important, when we're looking at these types of situations. How are we going to, help someone who's like a person like Dallas with all the problems he had? His was severe.
Yes.
Yeah.
And his was severe, and his family's problems were severe. So it would be, there's no way you can be in any type of relationship with someone like him. because of how severe his problems were. But go ahead, Wendy.
But right, as in the movie house, he was feeding her bits and pieces of what he went through, instead of just saying, "Hey, this is what's going on." So she's just like, "Okay, oh wow, that's new to me. I never knew that." So he wasn't being up front with her from the beginning, and then the lies,
And
and then whatever.
he only did it when he was drunk, though. He only
Yeah,
opened up when he was drunk.
yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to add
That's
to
true.
that. I want to add to that what we're talking about now, Andrew, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Okay, so let's be honest as women. As a Black woman, we do not want a weak man that is emotional and has trauma. So there was no safe place there for him to tell her, except when she knew he was at his weakest. If he would have told her all of that in the beginning, this man is too weak for me. We don't want a weak man. I hate to say this, but I'm gonna be honest. He could share that with some other group, but not with us. Let's be honest.
Got it. You know what I was going to say is men, and even in a counseling setting, men and women are totally different on how they receive counseling. When I would counsel women's groups, I would put the topic or the thing out there, and they would do all the talking most of the time. I just had to keep them in the lane, but they would do it. They would go back and forth with each other. They would do all that. With men issue out information in small doses. And it just over the course of time, you'll get it.
Yep.
And the reason why men do that is because just what Ellen said, they don't want to be portrayed as this weak man. It's hard to get men in the counseling period because of that. They don't want to be portrayed as a weak man. And
they
then on
pride.
top of it,
They
right,
pride, they ego.
right. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. So they don't want to be portrayed as this weak man. They don't want that. So what ends up happening is they literally will give you the information in small doses.
Women do the same thing too now.
Yes,
They sure
yeah, I
do.
do. But in relationships, I do.
Yeah.
Yes, a woman is somebody.
I'm not going to give you all of me.
Right.
I'm gonna feed it
They
to you a
give it
little.
small doses.
Because I was like that too.
You'll find out in the beginning stages. Oh, yeah, I did this. I did have a baby here, but it's fine. Baby's with my mom. Oh, I also owe about $10,000 in credit card debt over here. I didn't, I just, but they wait till after they got you.
Yeah.
The feelings and emotions are involved, and they slide these other little things in.
That's so true. That's so true.
Yes, true.
So we're gonna move on because that's we get too much into that. Let's just see the generational views. Now, Wendy, you said you're a old school and new school combined. So we're going to start off with you. In what ways do you think generational views on divorce have changed within the Black community? And does the film effectively show that contrast, I guess, between a newer, an older couple and a newer couple? Because older couples stay together for 40, 50, 60 years. New couples, they might get married for a reason, and then after a few years, they're done.
Well, now you see the older generation that's been married 20 plus years getting divorced. So that's way different from back, in the earlier days. And I say it's I say yes, it did show, the generational divorce or whatever. But a lot of people just don't want to stick it out, and the millennials are like they out within a year. I know.
Because well, part of it is now marriage is about I'll use the word, it's more about lifestyle than it is about love.
Yeah.
It's on both ends of the spectrum, whether it's the man or the woman. It's about more or less, what can you do for me to make my lifestyle or my image better?
And I think
more so.
they should have
go ahead.
positive role models too. Like I always tell my children, I said, don't only look at our marriage, look at your friends, your friends' parents' marriage, positive marriages. Be around those type of people.
Mhm.
If I can't feed you what you need, you know, have, like, I call them their other family. They have them to look up to. But no one wants to deal with it. Like, okay, I don't need you. I'm out. You see how
Mhm.
fast she signed that paper? She did. Do you want to
Yes.
read it? I already read it. I'm out.
Yes. At that point, she was done, though. She
Yeah.
was done.
Mhm.
April, what about you? Do you think that the generation, the generation on how they view marriage and divorce is different? Or, I guess the question is, for the most part, are the younger generation, are they in it for the long haul, or are they just in it for a minute?
Minute,
A minute.
a minute. As soon as it becomes uncomfortable, it's time to go.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, their reason I'm Gen X, so their reason today, it's not like back in the days at all. It's different. And I know when I was growing up, the other generation before me was always about sticking it out and working it out no matter what. But I think my generation was like, yeah, I'll stick it out, but I'm not going to sit there and let you beat on me. I'm not
Right.
going to sit there and let you completely tear me down forever for the sake of marriage. That whole stand by your man went out the door in our generation. So, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, you know what? I had mentioned this before on a podcast, and I was just saying that, 2 generations ago, maybe the some people got married out of need.
Mhm.
There might have been a woman who might have had a child or two, and
Yeah.
lack very limited resources. She might have got with a guy and married him because he wasn't rich or nothing, but being with him would make her life significantly better than what it is. She might not have
Yeah.
been head over heels in love with him. He wasn't her first choice, but she would marry that guy. And, they would get in their Toyota Corolla and ride off into the sunset. They didn't have much, but they had something and they had each other and they stuck it out and, they made it work. They might have had a couple more children and they just did it and they stayed together. Now that women can sort of provide their own needs through working in their careers, they are focusing on wants.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is sort of where the problem comes in is because, the man that they want, just about every other woman wants that guy too,
Yeah.
because they want the top tier type of guys.
Mhm.
I did a show not too long ago and it was called The 2 Words Women Hate in Relationships. And the 2 words were average and settle. And the reason why I did that is because nobody wants to settle for anybody and nobody wants average.
Mhm.
And even if you are average yourself, you don't want average. So this is where this is
Oh my
where
gosh.
we're at when it comes to relationships. We're in this weird place. And so that is it sounds crazy, but nowadays I think that generational contrast is more on that. It's about
Mhm.
lifestyle, what you can do for me, all of
Mhm.
these different types of things. So it's kind of a strange thing with that. The last area did want to talk about, there's 1 or 2 areas I want to talk about. We will finish up with this. How do you heal after a divorce? And what does it mean to rebuild? So after you've been divorced, how long does it take you to heal? Should you jump right into a new relationship? And this, in the movies, the way the movie portrayed it, she jumped right into a relationship with somebody else. Benjamin, I think his name was. And the
Mhm.
movie portrayed it to where she, it was a long lost friend. They were never serious, but he jumped right in. She jumped right in a relationship with him. Ellen, what are your thoughts on that? How long does that healing process maybe take or should take? Or should there be a healing process at all? Should you just, once it's over, you're out there and you're in the dating market?
I think there should be a healing process, and it's on that individual as far as healing. But we really don't heal per se We all are broken. And that's how you get into a relationship anyway. Two broken people got together unless they're cheating and still have someone hanging on. You know what I mean? But so it's going to always come together with brokenness, but we don't heal. We need to heal. And I think that healing starts with that individual separately, and they just find out or confess that they're broken. That's the hardest part. Confess that you're broken. You're not well enough for a relationship right now. And will they do that? I don't think so. So it's an individual healing on their own time. That's what I think. But as far as getting together right after a divorce, I think that should be some healing time. If they have kids, of course, they're going to want a marriage again to go forward and build a family.
Sure. Wendy, what about you? Do you think there should be a healing time, or, or should you just, depending on the situation, or maybe how you got divorced? If, some divorces are amicable, some divorces are toxic, they're tumultuous. Some can be very, very, challenging. I guess the question I would ask you is like, did not the amount of time it would take to heal, but should there even be a healing process after a divorce?
I think it should be if you was in a very abusive relationship, I think you really should take the time to heal, because if you don't deal with those emotions, you're going to still bring it over to your next relationship.
True.
Sure.
I was divorced. I didn't have all that drama that I had to go on. I was able to move on. You see what I'm saying? So, yes, I think it does depend on the person, but if you was in a situation where it was toxic, by all means, take the time to heal.
I agree.
And then what does it mean to rebuild? To actually rebuild? What does that mean? What does that look like?
You can rebuild yourself. You might have low self-esteem. You might have to rebuild from, like, someone, say for instance, I walked away from everything, right? So I had to rebuild. The material things don't really matter, but you will rebuild those. You will build your trust in people, in relationships. It's so many aspects to rebuild it, to make it whole. So if you find someone that's gonna, how I don't know, it's like in the trenches with you and want to build together, that could be something beautiful.
Sure. Ellen, what do you think? Do you think, what does it mean to actually rebuild?
You can still have that same situation because you're not moving away from you, if this making any sense to any of you guys. Because I think that rebuilding is changing your perception, how you see things, and what is really important to you to go forward. Because if you go in with the same perspective, the same views, it's going to be the same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah. And when you get divorced and you go to another relationship, and let's just say the other person you're with was also divorced and y'all enter in a new relationship, I always say both people have stuff, right? It could be children. It could be a variety of different things. There has to be a plan in place to deal with the stuff. Maybe it means some type of a counseling session, maybe monthly or something, to deal with the stuff. Because a lot of people get, they might fall in love with somebody and they jump right into another marriage and never, ever address these issues.
Yep.
Never talked about them, never did anything. And then when the issues pop up, it becomes a lot more tumultuous because they never discussed them during the quote unquote honeymoon phase. They never really talked about them. And so that's where it can get really tricky. It could get, marriages can collapse really quickly because some things just build up and then all of a sudden they just, throw an avalanche of stuff at you. And I'm pretty sure y'all been in relationships where someone brought something up that happened years ago and you didn't even know what they were talking about, but then they'll do that. But this has been on their mind for a long time. And then it comes out. So I think the healing and the rebuilding is very, very paramount when we're dealing with this. The one other last little area I want to talk about before we leave is on this particular movie, there were no children involved. Thank God. There was no children involved. If there was children involved, do you think that Ava would have left sooner, or do you think she would have still tried to rough it out? Wendy, you could go first.
I think she probably would have still tried to rough it out because she was, she wanted to be married. She wanted this picture perfect marriage. I think she would have still been there.
All right, and Ellen, what's your thoughts on that?
I think she would have still been there, but also I'm thinking about his side of the family because Miss Linda had a great influence over her son, and I'm pretty sure she would throw her influences over her grandchildren as well.
Got it. Good. That's good. That's true. That is true. I don't know if I want her babysitting the kids.
No, definitely not.
She might be sweet because the grandbaby.
She'd be like, "Give me my grandchild. Give me my grandchild.
Yeah, no,
Go
no.
get her. Go get her."
Well, we're about to wrap up. I know we didn't cover every single thing that I thought we might have got to, but this is our first live stream, so we're new to this. And I just want to thank Wendy, April, who we did have some technical difficulties. I want to thank Wendy, April, and Ellen. Of course, I want to thank you because this was your idea. And Ellen, I'm just asking you this one last question. Why did you want to talk about this particular this movie and bring it up in a live stream platform?
I wanted to bring it up because some of the people in our Black community, they did not like it, and I don't know what they were thinking. And as the title, as it says, "Married in the Black," and I'm thinking maybe they thought that super Black couple or something like that, power couples like Michelle and Obama. That's what they were expecting. But to bring up the trauma, I don't think that we were ready to digest that. I'm just going to put myself in the poll. But I thought this was a masterpiece. I thought Tyler Perry did a wonderful job in seeing this. And so I had to see it from my own perspective with my own eyes. And I thought it was a masterpiece.
Great. Well, we're glad that you came up with the idea. We are going to release this as a podcast episode. The podcast is entitled The 313 Men, Money, and Marriage. There will be clips on the Instagram page, The 313 Men, Money, Marriage, all one word. Just type that in, and there will be clips from this particular podcast episode. In addition to that, there is a website for the show where all of the episodes have been archived. You can leave a review. You can get on an email list right there from the website. There will be a link in the show notes where you will you will be able to do that as well. So I want to just say, again, we thank the audience who's been supporting the show. Thank the guests who came on and gave up a little bit of their Thursday night to talk about this particular issue. And I just want to say thank you. And we are out.